Oh yeah, here we go. Practice acquisition. There are pitfalls throughout the entire process. If you want to buy a practice, this is how, folks.
Acquisition Unscripted, the truth when buying and selling a dental practice. And now your host, Michael Dinsio.
All right, guys, welcome. Is my voice shot? Because holy cow, my voice is gone. It is Shark Week, the last episode. I've made it through. Hopefully you guys got a ton of great marketing advice this week. I will be introducing my next guest, but we got into ROI on a whole nother level, like pretty deep. We definitely touched on some Google algorithm stuff, which was really fascinating. Like, how do you talk to a marketing person as smart as the guy that I'm about to introduce you to, who knows SEO on another level, but how do you interview someone so that they make it tangible and easy to understand? I thought he did a great job. Big picture. I thought we covered a lot of ground. ROI, Google algorithms, converting the digital footprint from old website to new. We got into conversion rates, which is very important. So marketing companies need to get you calls. How do you convert them? What's important and how do you track? So a lot of great stuff. As I conclude this week, I want to remind all of you what I do is buyer representation. So if you're looking to buy a practice, you need help. You need us to hold your hand through the process. We've got a couple programs that could help you do that. Buying a practice can be super scary. We've got years and years and hundreds of deals of experience in it. So if you're looking for someone to hold your hand through the process, let's set up a consult over at Next Level Consultants. Without further ado, let's get it going. Last episode of Shark Week, and thank you all for being a part of it. All right, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Dental Acquisition Unscripted. This is Mike Dinsio with Next Level Consultants. You guys know me, but today I'm interviewing a friend that I've known for 20 years. We've done business together, and he's taught me a lot about the dental marketing game. I think they've been in the game for longer than 20 years now. So is that right? Over 20 years?
2000? 15, something like that. It's been a while though. It feels like it.
It feels like it. Well, with that being said, this is Ian McNickle. He's the founder and co-founder. And Ian, you tell the audience who WEO Media is and what you guys are all about.
Yeah, thanks for having us today, Mike. Appreciate it. I'm one of the three co-founders of WEO Media. We're a dedicated dental marketing agency, national. We're based in Portland, Oregon area, but as a lot of companies these days, we're pretty virtual. Our staff is all over the country, and so we have clients as a result all over the country. We've been around, for about 15 years. We've done very well. We exclusively do dental. Work with probably a couple thousand practices over the years now. General dentists and specialists alike. We know the space inside and out, and love to share some information with everybody today, just from the lessons learned over the years.
Dude, thank you so much. Just having you on the program is an asset to us. And look, this week is Marketing Shark Week. We've gotten into a lot of great stuff, some tips and tricks. Honestly, each episode has kind of taken a different form, not really where I thought it would go. And so really our format today is just, it's wide open. Let's see where it goes. But as you know, we're working through the acquisition process, and we've hit marketing. And marketing is key because you're trying to grow a practice. The minute you buy it, it's really important that you have a growth strategy, that you don't just buy something and stay stagnant. And oftentimes you are, inheriting or purchasing somebody else's situation that may not be as great as it could be. And so a lot of different directions that we could go in, but why don't we just start it by an open-ended question is, what do you see as the biggest pitfalls for an acquisition, like a buyer walking into buying a practice? Like, what do you see as a challenge kind of like in your world of doing this for as long as I've been in the business.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. When it comes to acquisitions, marketing specifically, probably not planning ahead enough in advance is the thing that I see more often than not bites doctors.
Yeah.
And using a Shark Week analogy there, bites them, right? So
that's good. I didn't get that. Dang it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, a lot of times there may be a rebranding involved, maybe a new logo, name switch, that type of thing. So you want to allot some time for the logo design. And if you're going to be launching or rebranding a website, obviously the logo generally needs to be done before that can be done. So it's just kind of making sure you've got, a good 3 to 4 months before, you need to kind of take ownership or before you're starting to see patients. Start that process, right? So you can get the logo going. If there's a rebranding, they can do the redesign on the website. And sometimes there's even like a changing of the website URL, depending on if it was in the old doctor's name. And so a lot of times what we'll do in that case is maybe run parallel URLs or do a redirect, right, where the old one redirects to the new one, that kind of thing. There's different ways to approach it, but
yeah,
all these things take a little time to implement. So that's probably the biggest pitfall is if you're, any doctors listening to this, 3 to 4 months out, you ought to be engaging with a marketing company about that far out, at least. Further out is even better. If you can do 6 months, cool. But 3 to 4 is probably a good rule of thumb.
Now on the startup side, like all day, every day, you can waterfall back into the timeline of that all day long. The challenge is with an acquisition is folks don't usually know that they're going to the finish line in an acquisition.
True.
Probably 30 days, maybe 45 if they're lucky, out before they maybe have an accepted LOI, or let's say the LOI is accepted, but then there's some negotiation during the due diligence of something that they saw that they didn't like. And so, okay, so you're through due diligence, and then now you're doing the deal. So you're probably about 30 days out. So that can be challenging, not having your ducks in a row. So in those situations, Ian, like do you suggest kind of using the seller's digital assets in the short term and the interim of getting up to speed?
Yeah, certainly. Certainly. And it really depends on the strategy of what the buyer's looking to do. Are they looking to kind of maintain, is the selling doctor going to be sticking with them for a period of time so that it's easy to leverage and keep those things in place, and then you slowly migrate to different branding eventually? That's one path. Obviously, the other path is the doctor selling, walking away tomorrow, smooth, clean transition. So in that case, you can still do that. But if the buyer has because sometimes I talk with buyers and they're like, yeah, I definitely want to rebrand. I've got my name and my idea for how I want to brand myself. And that's cool. In that case, you can still kind of get the logo and the branding going and maybe buy the URL and even kind of get a website queued up without an address. So you can still do parts of the process, even if you don't know specifically where you're going to land, if you want to rebrand it yourself. So I think it depends on which path you're going, and also it depends on what the selling doctor is looking to do.
Let's talk about like what you just said. I don't think we spent enough time on Shark Week about a strategy here. You guys, you guys definitely have a foothold in the digital, website space. You've been doing it for so long. How do you go from like Robert Smith DDS is the website domain to change it to, Apple Dental or whatever, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like
right.
how do you capture, let's just say that Robert Smith DDS.com is doing decent. It's got maybe, it shows up on the first page, whatever. He's been around for years, and they do get, new clients, patient calls from that. How do you transfer that over in a smart way? Like, can you give us a little bit of that? Like, we'll never be able to do this ourselves, but at least like comprehend what the marketing companies are trying to do. And buddy, keep it at a first grade level here, because I know that, dude, Google and heck, even Apple Maps, and there's all kinds of things. So we could probably get crazy here. Let's try to keep it to Google though. Let's just try to keep it to Google for now. How do you jockey that asset over? Is there best practices?
Yeah. So Google is probably, the most important thing you need to worry about, obviously, because they have about 2/3 of the search volume in North America. So that's going to be the top one we focus on initially. But yeah, so when you're changing the branding, or in the URL, that's really, I guess, the first thing to think about is the URL going to stay the same or change? If it's going to stay the same, that's fairly easy. You don't need to do much.
Yeah.
Eventually, you're going to want to update the website, of course, but where it gets real tricky is if you're updating the URL, which a lot of times happens. A lot of times the buyer wants to rebrand and its old brand was in the doctor's specific name and the new doctor wants it maybe in their name or something else. Or it's a sometimes you get a practice that's already got a couple locations and they're buying a third location and they want to kind of tuck it into their existing branding. So depends a little bit on that, but to get specific about Google, so everybody knows there's kind of like the Google business page, right? And so I encourage people to think of that as like their second website, because it gets a lot of traffic, and a lot of times people will do the search and they'll click on that and they'll look at the Google business page, and a lot of times they'll convert right there. They can schedule an appointment. Sometimes they can call directly before they even visit the website. If they see 134 reviews, 4.9 star average, got some nice photos on the Google business page, looks like it's relatively nearby, I'm just going to go ahead and call them. And a lot of times they don't even visit the website. So, oftentimes they will, but there's a decent chunk of the time they don't. So the first thing you want to do is get that Google page really, converted to the proper information. This can get tricky because you have to prove ownership. So if the existing doctor has ownership and actually remembers their login, that's good luck with that.
We've spent a little time on that this week. It's getting all the passwords, not just that one, but Dentrix and all the things. But yeah, you're right. Okay, so having the access to it is key. Step one.
Yeah. If we can get access, it's relatively easy for us to make the updates. If it's a situation more commonly where they don't remember, then you got to go through kind of a verification owner process with Google. And it's helpful. Like if you're hiring an agency, a marketing agency to do this stuff, it's beneficial if they're like a Google certified partner. It does give them more connections within Google to help move things along quickly. That would be kind of a piece of advice too. It's, like a common misnomer with like a Google certified partner agency is people think, oh, that means they're going to do a good job. All it really means is that people have passed a test, which technically show they kind of technically know what to do. It doesn't mean they've got good customer service. Doesn't mean they build good websites. Doesn't mean that they're honest and ethical. All it means is they technically passed a test, right? So now they do have higher tiers, like you've been with them for longer and you spend more money and stuff like that. So over the years, we've gotten to be a pretty high tier within Google. But regardless, if you're looking to partner with somebody from a doctor's perspective, it's kind of it's not a have to have, but it's a nice to have, because it will help you get some things moved more quickly along with Google if you're trying to recover passwords and just get things resolved. That's kind of step one with Google. And then of course you got everything else, Facebook and Instagram, all the directories and so forth.
So what you're saying is really tap into kind of the listings. I think the official word is listings, the third party listings, to tie the old site to the new site, or the old name to the new name. That it really starts there, is really tying everything back to.
Yeah. You want to do Google kind of first and foremost, but absolutely, there's literally like over 100 different directories and listings out there, and there's more added all the time. And so what most marketing companies use is we'll use an aggregator service to do a lot of them, where you can just kind of input the correct information and it blasts it out over the next 30 to 45 days. They'll get synced. Then the bigger, more important ones like Google, Yelp, and some of those, you want to go in and manually do those, because there's just so much there's so much more you can do with the manual process that gets you a much bigger bang for the buck than just kind of simply updating information. So the big directories, you want to really physically do those with having like an SEO, manager do that kind of work. So, but it's really helpful if you do it right.
That makes total sense. Very, very cool. So we talked a little bit about like how to transfer that over. The idea of startup versus acquisition is kind of lingering in my head, and I know I'm not supposed to cross over. I'm breaking my own role with you, Ian. But like, what are like I'll give you the opportunity that I didn't get the rest of the sharks, of really defining from a marketing perspective, what's the biggest advantage of buying a practice from a marketing perspective? Well, would it be disadvantage or advantage? It's probably advantage. Let's say advantages.
Advantage.
What's the advantage of buying a practice versus doing a scratch start in your world? Of course, there's that's a hot topic in everybody's respective fields, but in your field, marketing, are there advantages then?
Yeah, certainly there can be. Likewise, there's a flip side of that coin. If the existing practice you're buying has a bunch of bad reviews or has done some nefarious stuff on Google and has been penalized, it can actually be a negative. But I would say generally it's a positive. Google looks at how long the website has been active and live. So if you can keep that URL in place, or redirect it, perhaps you get some benefit there. There's name recognition from Google searches and things like that. Domain authority can be built up, which trying to keep it at the first grade level, but domain authority is like an important thing that Google looks at to determine how high to rank you in a Google search. It's one of their tons and tons of different, there's a couple hundred different ranking factors, but that's one of the important things that they look at. So all those things are better if you've been around for a while, right? So an existing practice. So generally it's beneficial from that perspective.
Yeah. I heard someone say once, and I'm not sure if it was this week or in years past, and that your domain is like an address, like your house, house. And if you're changing it, you're changing the address, then people might not be able to find you. So essentially you've got to build the new house and tell the post office to redirect your mail and all of that good stuff. So, but the longer that your house has been listed, the more authority, so to speak, that particular site has. I mean, get into a little bit of the authority stuff. This is interesting to me. Like, it just feels like this, like kissing the ring type situation with Google. Like you can never really figure it out. Or like a credit score, there's certain things that you need to do to make sure you get a score. What are the big ones? I mean, we'll never be able to get into all 100 that you just said, that hundreds, but what are like the big things?
Yeah. So when it comes to just ranking on Google in general, I mean, obviously getting the Google business page properly set up with the correct information is important. Getting all the listings to be, again, consistent is very helpful, especially the major directories, Yelp and Facebook and Healthgrades and some of the big guys. But when you're looking at just pure Google rankings, that's there really, I teach entire courses on this. So the way I think about it, the way we teach this is you've got a set of what we call on-page ranking factors and then off-page. So on-page would be on the website itself. So optimizing the code, HTML, meta tags and keywords and all that stuff. The content is probably the most important piece, having unique content that's written specifically and only for your practice. That's a really big factor. And, videos, photos, anything that's not stock. So stock content, Google gives you very little to no credit for it. So whether it's written content, photos, or videos, if they're not unique and not optimized, then you get very little benefit. And simply like having unique stuff in and of itself, that doesn't necessarily help a lot unless you do it properly. So unique content, you want to have, keywords that you're trying to rank for. If you have videos and you're posting them on YouTube and then embedding them on your website, if you don't, fill out a title for the YouTube video, and you probably know this from your podcast, right? You want to have a title, you want to have a description so it can be indexed and found by Google. If you don't do those things, then it doesn't have as much impact on your SEO ranking. So lots of little stuff like that on page. The code and the content are by far the big ones. Off page, it's your directories. Another thing we didn't talk about yet is really reviews. Online reviews, as everybody knows, this is not a news flash. Everybody knows they're important, but I think a lot of people probably don't realize how important they are, because they're a pretty decent factor for Google rankings. And of course, when we teach marketing at a higher level, we're talking really there's kind of three steps. You got to generate a lead, number one. Number two, you convert that lead to an appointment request. Number three, you convert that patient into sold dentistry, right? So the marketing company, we're really trying to generate the lead, and it's really on the office to convert the lead and then have case acceptance happen in the chair. So we can really kind of just do that first step. So there's a lot of things that go into doing that on our side. What we found that gets the best results for folks is if we can work with practices who are willing. This is just advice I'd give your listeners here. If you hire a marketing company, try to find one that you can partner with and not just be a vendor, right? There's a big difference between a vendorship mentality and a partnership mentality. And you want to hire some group, some company that's going to collaborate with you. They're going to share information every month. Hey, we got you ranking for these keywords. What are you seeing? What kind of phone calls are you getting, right? Because we're trying to track, are the phone calls going up? Are the appointment requests going up? Is the Google traffic and rankings, of course, corresponding to that? So, but if we see traffic and phone calls going up and the practice is like, oh, we're not really getting any new patients from it, something is wrong, right? One of those three steps is amiss. And so we can record calls and work with them on that stuff. And a lot of times, if we do get complaints like that from practices, we'll go through their recorded calls and see, look, 45% of your calls are going to voicemail, and then the ones that you're answering, they're like, hello, instead of, hi, welcome to Bob Smith Dentistry. How can that kind of thing, right? There's just like the training is really lacking and the attention to the phones is lacking.
Yeah.
So that gets you in trouble all the time.
I do talk about like a lot as a consultant, like you can hold your marketing company accountable to getting you some phone calls. Absolutely. I mean, you should.
Sure.
You're spending some money. You need to know what the trickle down is. But and not but and the onus is also on you in that, like, you got to track your conversion rates and you got to look at how many calls you missed. And we're always putting software on our clients' system where we're listening to calls, because I mean, it's great to say that you got 30, 40 new patients this month, but I want to know how many calls you got, because what if you had 60 calls and you only got 20 new patients? There's a miss there. Just like diagnosing dentistry and converting the treatment and tracking like treatment acceptance. Like it's the same on calls to converting to the appointment, but also it swings all the way through to treatment. Actually, it's not just how'd you take the call and did you convert the call, but also did you then convert the treatment that you diagnosed? So you might spend a couple $1,000s with WEO Media on a pay-per-click campaign this month. And if you got 5 calls, which might be a little lower, but 2 of them, you got 2 Invisalign cases, well, that paid for itself easily. So I like to take it to ROI as well. I'm glad you said that, and that triggered something. Ian, back to tracking. Can I ask you this? So kind of in a different direction. What's the best way to track where the source of the new patient came from, right? Because if you're doing Google or pay-per-click campaigns or postcards or Facebook or whatever, just having, like you said, the Google My Business page complete, like all of these things, patients come in and they say, where'd you hear of us? And they say Google. I mean, that could be anybody. Like, so what's your advice on real tracking? How do you track this stuff?
Yeah. That's always always is
this a tough question? Oh, okay.
No, it's a long answer, but I'll keep it to a shorter version.
All right, first grade. Remember, first grade.
Yeah. So the short answer is it's impossible to accurately track every single lead. What you want to try to do is approximate as best you can. In the olden days, we would use like a separate tracking number for every single different thing. Different phone number on Facebook, different on Instagram, different on website, different on Google, different on Yelp. And so the problem was, that tended in the days past, you get severely penalized by Google in your rankings, because it would say, well, we don't know which of these numbers is correct. And so it loses confidence in the information it's displaying. And so it tends to hurt your rankings. Google's gotten more forgiving at that over time, but generally it's still kind of when you're talking digital, it's a little trickier to do that. Now, if you're doing radio, TV, print, direct mail, definitely use different tracking numbers for those. But even on those, if somebody hears your radio campaign, call 800 Bob Smith, whatever, lot of times they still go online and Google search Bob Smith and go to his website and end up calling him through the website. So you just have to recognize that a lot of consumer behavior, they're typically going to look at between 3 to 7 pieces of information before they pick up the phone and call you. And you're oftentimes only able to track the last thing that they looked at. So what we teach,
That's so true. Yeah.
Yeah. What we teach in our courses, in the marketing classes that I'll do at these, workshops and dental conferences and study clubs and all that kind of thing. One of the things I'll teach is you definitely want to track the aggregate, like, so total calls, increasing, new patient versus existing, if you can use like a patient prism or some sort of software like that helps you discern these things. And then you want to start it with like, what's the top level ROI? So I'm spending $2,000 a month. I got 20 new patients, $100 a month acquisition cost. So start there. Is that number acceptable? If it is, okay, cool. You're in a good space. Now, can we dig deeper and see specifically, well, how about more SEO? Where should I, if I want to spend more money, where should I increase my budget? Or I want to dial back, what's the least bang for the buck? Mm-hmm. And so then it's like, okay, is SEO versus PPC versus, social. And so in those conversations, you can track things. So like on the pay-per-click ads, there's little tracking mechanisms you can use in there with cookies and where you can follow them through to see kind of the different pages they've clicked on. Mm-hmm. So you can, to a degree, get a feel for what are your more popular pages, your landing pages, what your more popular search results. And so you can get a sense of what's working the best, but to narrow it down to like, okay, I got 20 new patients and I want to know specifically where each one of those 20 came from. That is admittedly difficult to do. Yeah. You can get a feel for generally by certain things, but it's a little harder to know.
So your suggestion would be to look at your marketing mix. I was a marketing major, marketing mix. So you have a mix of things, tools, things you're investing in. And then that mix is yielding X amount of calls. And then you would take the calls and divide it by how much you're spending. And then that's your kind of like your base is what you're saying. And then at that point, you can kind of play with the mix. Is that what
you can always dig deeper, but I don't want people to kind of lose, sight of the forest through the trees here. The idea is return on investment, right? So it's like you want to spend X amount of dollars and get 5-10 times return on your money when you're getting patient flow. So that's kind of the high level. But how do you, especially with with dental groups, they're always going to want to squeeze every last dollar out. And so and frankly, any practice should want the same thing. Yeah. I want to, if I'm spending X amount of dollars, I want to get the best return I can get. And so there are a lot of things you can do with campaigns where you can use unique form fills on different landing pages. You can use different kind of coupon codes to identify, use the coupon code springtime, and you only use that on Yelp. And then you use something else only on Google or, on Facebook. So
I see. Yeah.
There's ways to kind of track it with things like that. And there's, of course, cookies. You can do cookies and things like that. And then you can use tracking numbers, and some things you can use tracking numbers a little differently. So there are ways to get at it. And you can get fairly accurate, but 100% accuracy, I just don't think is possible.
Yeah. No, that's the right answer. Sorry for the hard question. We just didn't.
No, that's good.
We just really didn't dig into that too much this week, and I feel like the ROI conversation needed to be dug into a little bit deeper.
One other quick thing I would add. Sorry to interrupt you, Mike. Quick thing I'd add is like another way to do this is layering things over time. So like you start with one service, like we're just doing SEO. And you're kind of get it up and you're ranking well, and you see kind of once your phone calls and your traffic kind of plateau, like, okay, we know this is our baseline, what we're getting from SEO, spending this much, getting this many patients, ROI. So you could do that. Now we're going to layer on PPC ads on Google, right? Optimize that for 3 to 6 months, see what the difference is. So if you really wanted to know, you could sequence these things one at a time over time and kind of establish new baselines as you go. Yeah. And that is a way to get more accurate, but it's a slower process to get there. Yeah.
And to do anything, you should do it at least 3 months. Is that kind of the rule of thumb?
It largely depends on what it is. So like for pay-per-click ads, I mean, you turn on an ad, you're getting calls and clicks the same day. You turn on the campaign, but it does take time to dial it in to get the cost per click down, to get the conversion rates better on the landing pages, to see what terms are more efficient. So usually within 3 to 4 months, a good PPC manager should have a pretty well not totally optimized, but pretty dang good. And you should be getting a pretty good ROI within a few months. SEO is like if PPC ads are a sprint, SEO is the marathon, right? It takes time. So if you are in downtown Seattle, that's much, much more difficult than if you are in eastern Montana, right? I mean, it's based on population density, right? So the more densely populated the area that your practice is in, the longer it's going to take you to get SEO results. Getting back to that kind of domain authority piece where it's like if you buy a practice in downtown Seattle that's been there for 20 years, you want that digital agency to do a little research. Well, how is this domain ranking? Like if you got a super powerful domain, you probably want to do what you can to try to keep it at least as a parallel domain to maybe your additional website. Maybe you can have two websites, one purely for marketing, one more for patients. Like there's different strategies there, but you want to pay attention to that. So it's largely the competition will determine like how quickly can you really start judging the results for SEO.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good, Ian. Thank you for doing that. It's a complex world there. That's why you guys have experts probably that just specialize on that.
We have a team of a dozen people, and that's all they do is SEO, like literally.
what on that vein, what are the right questions to ask a marketing firm then? Like you kind of touched on, and I love that you did on the whole Google preferred provider thing. I always wondered about that. But with a transition, a startup, really just partnering back to that conversation, like you said, like partnering with a firm and someone that educates you about your stuff. What are some really good questions as you're interviewing marketing companies and seeing what they all have to offer? And there's a number maybe of topical categories, you might want to ask them, like when it comes to results, it's like, hey, how much experience do you have with, if you're a pediatric or ortho or peri-oral surgery, whatever your type of practice, do you have a lot of experience with my type? Do you have experience in my kind of geography? And whether you're in like Pennsylvania, Maryland, Idaho, like Nevada, there are definitely differences regionally in terms of like what you would do from messaging in some things, but like the technical part's identical. It's like, oh, you need to understand my market. For most of it, you really don't. It's more on the technical side. So the questions you're going to want to ask would be more along the lines of, you have experience with the type of practice, how long have you guys been in business? How many clients have you worked with? Just trying to ascertain like how much dental experience these guys really have. And is dental one of 20 verticals that they operate in, or is it just like one of one or one of two or something like that? Yeah.
When we started WEO, years ago, back in 2009, I think we started it. Initially we had a half a dozen verticals, and by 2011 we decided to focus exclusively on dentistry, just because we could see where the industry was going. And it's like, look, if we're going to be really, really good at this digital marketing, we need to pick an industry and just get super knowledgeable and go deep dive on it, because so much of digital marketing has to do with content. So another question you're going to want to ask, in addition to like how long have you been around, is, what do you do for content? Are you writing unique content specifically for my practice, or is it cookie cutter stock content? And like, if people ask us that, the answer would be, it depends on what package. If they just want a basic website and that's it, they just get the stock content like everybody else, because they're not really they don't care about rankings. They don't care about new patient flow. If you are doing SEO and you care about new patient flow and rankings, then we always are going to want to write that unique content for them. So, asking
how hard is that, Ian, to do something so unique enough? How do you write? I always wondered that. I mean, with the chat GPs and the AIs and stuff, that's a hot topic right now. But like, you can't just write a website with chat GP and think that's going to fly with Google, right? Like, I guess this whole concept of custom stuff, Google really hurts you if you're going to copy and paste, right?
It does, yeah. Google does not really give any ranking benefit if the content is duplicate, meaning it exists on other websites. And and then there's software tools. Like we have software tools. Most, like any serious SEO agency with a lot of experience, is going to be using a third-party software to really analyze the website and look at because the software that's out there, like we can literally look at a page by page by page in the website, and it'll tell us what percent uniqueness is this page. 20%, 80%, and literally on a page by page basis, we can see how unique each page is, the content and the code. And so we want to target 70% or above on uniqueness for score. And we find if we can get a website with enough content at that 70% threshold or above, we can generally get it ranking very well, even in very competitive markets. So those are some of the things that we're trying to look at. Now, the AI stuff, that's kind of to be determined. I mean, Google initially said you can't use it, and then they just changed their mind. They says, well, maybe you can use it. And so it's very much evolving in real time. Like, I don't know what the future of content generation is going to look like with ChatGPT and all the AI stuff. It's super interesting right now.
Yeah.
We have never used it in terms of like content generation for our clients. We always use people, right? Website copy and social media posts. And like
Yeah.
But I could envision a situation where maybe the ChatGPT does the first draft and then an actual writer polishes it from there, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, folks, to put a timestamp, this is July 2023.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting with the whole AI stuff. So I always wondered how a writer that works for WEO could write a general practitioner's website 1,700 times, or I mean, that's got to be a skill set in its own right.
Yeah, we have a big team of people we contract with for sure too. One person doing it over and over would go insane.
Yeah, exactly. It got me thinking, and maybe this is the last topic for the interview, unless you want to really drop something different. But I was thinking, like, you were talking today about the SEO and really honing in on the services that you want to attract. And when people are searching, you want to make sure your website represents you well so that folks looking for that come back to you. That's in essence marketing and this whole SEO thing. So I'm thinking, like, as you walk into an acquisition, maybe the doctor was big into ortho, big into implants, big into endo. Yep. Maybe they were just bread and butter, and you can do some of those bigger procedures. It really is important to partner with a marketing company and really deep dive into what kind of patients you're looking for, because the seller may be a totally different profile. A, B, maybe their website doesn't even embody them or you. And so, yes, you're inheriting an old site, but I feel like your vision has to be crystal clear so that you're attracting the right people. Because otherwise, what are we doing here? Your team's writing articles about stuff that maybe the buyer isn't even interested in, but you're trying to create custom content. So, like, there should be an intentionality here with what they're looking for, right?
Yeah, certainly. So we have a client intake process where the sales consultant, they'll kind of scope out the services based on their goals and needs and budget and competition and all that, and they give them a custom proposal. Here's what we can do for you, and that can range from, we have clients paying us $100-$200 a month for basic stuff, and clients paying us $5,000-$10,000 a month for aggressive growth, and everything in between. Yeah. So it's very kind of a custom approach how we take. And then once the client onboards, then the operations team, they do an onboarding intake process where what they'll do is they'll ask a series of questions around what services do you provide? What are the top 3 things that you want to focus on the website? Are there certain types of patients you want to drive in particular? I want all-in-4 dental implants. I want Invisalign or ortho, or I want, sleep apnea, whatever it is. And so we'll ask those things specifically before we even start the build and design process. We know what services should we focus on, what content, and also we'll ask them, like, do you have content that because sometimes we have doctors who are like, I've already written some great stuff on blogs and articles and stuff in the past. Like, could I leverage that on my website? So we want to collect that stuff up front and build that, integrate that into the process as well. So yeah, the first thing is one of the first things you do is you need to understand what type of practice is it and what services they want to focus and highlight. And then that's how that gets rolled into the SEO and the content plan for sure.
Yeah, see, folks, that's key, because if you just go at this kind of blindly and without any thought or intention, then the marketing companies over here trying to do the best they can without all the information. It'd be like you doing a crown without, I don't know, all of your fancy equipment, so
Yeah.
each piece of it matters. And back to that partnership, the more that company can partner with you to get you the best results possible. So that's cool, buddy. Anything that you would like to add to the show, or don't feel the need to do this, but like a give, or we always put your contact information below, so
Cool.
they're
Thanks.
they're already going to have the access to you. But yeah, any last minute comments or concerns or questions or things that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think one of the questions I get asked a lot of times when I'm doing lectures or in interviews and stuff is, where do you see things going in the future, with digital marketing, dental marketing, these kinds of things. And in my opinion, what I've seen some companies doing and what WEO is doing as well, is really trying to take more control over that 3-step process: generate the lead, convert the lead, and schedule the, get the case acceptance. And so we are not a consulting company. We don't do that. But what we try to do is find people like you, Mike, frankly, who are in there, and they can help affect, are you answering the phone, and are you doing the right things clinically, and when a patient comes in, are you doing the whole process and intake process, the case acceptance, the treatment planning. We can't do that. That's not at all our core competence and skill sets. So for us, like, we try to find, like, with our clients, if they're spending $2,000-$3,000 a month on marketing or more, we're like, are you working with a consultant by any chance? Or are you, how are you handling the phones? We try to, like, without being pushy or kind of condescending or anything, just kind of ask, like, politely.
Yeah.
It'd be really great if you had somebody who could help pay attention to this, because you're going to pay us thousands of dollars to get that phone to ring.
Yeah.
And if what happens from there forward isn't optimized, you're wasting money on us.
It's
right.
True.
So
it's true.
my advice would just be, look at it as a process, not as just a function. Like, my marketing people, they get me new patients. No, the marketing people get you part of that process, right?
Yeah.
They start the journey, but it's your team and your consultants that are going to finish that part of the process. So to me, I think about it as a team approach. This is a team sport, 100%. This is not like a marketing company is some amazing rock star and we're gonna blow your door off with new patients.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's possible, but the internal part of the practice has to be running just as smooth.
Couldn't agree more. And the thing about that process, and you touched on, I think you said 3 to 5 or 3 to 7 touches before someone makes a decision. And that's so obvious, especially with the generational, the younger the generation, the more research they're doing, the more savvy. Gone are the days of having a pretty sign, and that's it. Today, not only do you have to have a decent looking, engaging website with the bounce rate that's appropriate. Gone are those days. Now it's, what did they post on Instagram? How many Google reviews? How did they respond to those Google reviews? I mean, how did they pick up the phone? Do they have availability? Do I have to wait too long? Like, the game has changed.
Yes.
And we have to be better. I know Ian works a little bit in the DSO space, and it's interesting that the DSOs, they are good at this stuff, and that's why they're winning. It's not winning, quote unquote. They're doing well. Let's just put it that way. I think private practice definitely is holding, but they're making sure calls are picked up. They are tracking those conversion rates. They're good at business, and you have to become really good at business too. And Ian and Next Level and all your partners should help you understand what's going on, so that we can fix it. So I echo that as loud as Ian said that, 100%. Thanks, Ian, so much for being part of Shark Week, brother. It's always a fun week. I'm exhausted. I think this is my last interview, and but we got through another year, and I think that the listeners are going to respond really well, because marketing is such an important thing. There's a lot of choices. Give WEO a shot. Call Ian, and see if you guys could partner with them. So thanks again, Ian.
All right. Yeah, happy to help. Thanks for having us, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.
We want to hear from you. Interact with your host, Michael Dinsio, Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Comment and subscribe.